Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into Chapter 62, Tyrion VIII of A Game of Thrones. And in the Maester study, we will be discussing Shae.
Yeah. Wow, you know, as we were getting ready for this episode, Sir Ezra, I looked and I said 62. Hold on, that number sounds, what is it about 62? And I was like, oh yeah, there's only 72 chapters. Well, I guess 73 if you count the prologue, but 72 chapters in this book. So we only have 10 chapters of the first book left.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just wild. I mean, to think. So we'll be done in around September-ish, I think. So,
and we'll be moving on to A Clash of Kings.
Yeah, which is an exciting book for sure. So, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy to think. So that took us, what, a little over a year
and we stopped for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
6-7 weeks during the show.
Right, okay. Right. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I feel like we're going at a better pace than maybe George is going with obviously much better pace.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you and I have mapped it out just to get through all the way to the end of what we currently have. We're like, this is probably about 5 years. 6 years, something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. Are we gonna finish the Dance of Dragons before Gurr gets done with the wins, or do you think we'll have wins by then?
I sure hope we have wins by then. But I mean, geez, who knows? I really just don't know. It could happen. He is not the healthiest guy, and I think that's the thing that kind of worries people with it. Maybe he is. I don't know. I'm not his doctor, but or his maester, but I'm guessing he's just getting up there in years, and I worry about him, all this, the new show he's working on, and he's just got so many projects. So
and he's got that video game he's working on, so
wow.
Lots of stuff, man.
Yeah, jeez. But I don't know. It's exciting though. What we're to wrap up this. We got some exciting chapters here, which really set us up for the next book, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, I guess there's a little bit of news. There were a ton of Emmy nominations. Did you see those?
No, What's up with that?
Okay. So Game of Thrones was nominated for Best Outstanding Drama. And just a bunch of other things. Best Supporting Actress, Lyanna Headey, Macy Williams, Sophie Turner, all of those kinds of things. But Kit Harington nominated for lead actor in a drama series. Yeah. But the really interesting thing is a handful of people were nominated for supporting actor roles.
Yeah,
because and HBO didn't submit them to the Academy, and they submitted themselves. Two of which being Alfie Allen, who plays Theon Greyjoy, and Gwendolyn Christie, who plays Brienne of Tarth. They submitted themselves for the roles, and they got nominated for Academy Awards. Yeah,
that's great. So why? So I guess that happens sometimes. And does it happen often with shows?
I don't know. I'd have to. I would have to look.
Yeah.
Look and see. And of course, Peter Dinklage also nominated. I'm looking at the full cast here. He's been nominated just about every year for Best Supporting Actor for Game of Thrones, and I think he's won. I think he's won at least 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he'll win one this year. I hope that Alfie Allen, the guy who plays Theon Greyjoy, gets it, because I went this week. I went back and I rewatched The Long Night again, which is easily becoming my favorite episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and
man, I just got it. I don't know. I love that episode. I just think it's great. I rewatched the scene where Theon is, where he dies, and I just think it's great. I think he did, just in terms of like the acting. I think this season, this most recent season, a lot of people had issues, obviously, with the story, but I still saw people saying, the music of this season isn't great. The cinematography this season is great. The acting this season is great, and it was.
Yeah, it was. I would be cool with him winning. That would be really awesome. He did a great job, I thought. And then Gwendolyn Christie, this was a great season for her, right? I feel like there was a lot of
Yeah, a lot
she
of
played a big role. I mean, a lot of diverse acting went
Mm-hmm.
into this this season. So yeah, that's cool. That is just man, is that almost another slap in the face for HBO? Just like, hey, we're gonna nominate ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, I'd have to look into that. My guess is that they probably my guess would be obviously they want to win, right? I mean, HBO or CBS, NBC, all these people obviously they want to win, so they probably say, well, let's just submit our best shot at winning. So for them, they probably think, okay, well, obviously, what if we just submit, say, Peter Dinklage because he's won before, so he's our best chance at winning.
Well, I mean, if they would just maybe they didn't watch the actual season because he gives terrible advice and he ends up in chains. Okay, so clearly his luck has run out. All right, I'm just kidding, but wow, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, is there? Okay, so when is that? I don't know, when is that coming up? Is that I don't really
the Emmys?
Yeah,
I don't know. Sometime I
don't
know.
pay attention.
Award seasons is a lot of people's favorite seasons. You know, you get the Grammys, the Tonys, the Oscars.
22nd looks like they say Sunday, September 22nd.
September 22nd. Okay.
Yeah. So cool. Well, that'll be fun. I really just it pops up on TV and I'm like, oh, that's happening. Or you text me and say this is happening. I'm like, oh, cool. I'll turn it on and watch. I'm, and I hope they win big. But yeah. So.
I remember that one year they weren't. So I guess your show has to air at a certain time to be eligible for a certain year. Is the way it works.
Okay.
I don't really know enough about them. I just know that Game of Thrones has like the most. So
yeah, we're the best. So I mean, it's still a great TV show, despite what we think about this last season. Overall, so many great seasons and so many great conversations that we had. On Monday morning about this series. So, yeah, and there are great moments in this last season.
So lead actor in a drama series, let's say Kit Harington. Kit Harington's competition this year would be Jason Bateman from Ozark, Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us, Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, Billy Porter from Pose, and Milo Ventimiglia.
Yeah, Milo. Yeah.
This Is Us. Isn't that the guy who was in Heroes? This Is Us? Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's really good. I'm not entirely sure what it's about, but I've heard it's like really sad.
Yeah, well, let me say one thing. I don't know if anybody follows me on Twitter, Womprett_2M. Make sure you do. You'll note that I watched the first 2 episodes. So episode 1, I'm hooked. Episode 2, something happens at the very end. I'm going to say this. The grandparents show up, and I literally threw a fit. I was like, okay, I'm done. Why watch anymore? That's all I'm going to say.
Whoa.
So,
okay.
But then people told me, no. You don't know the whole story. You have to keep watching. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not happy with how, with where we're at with the grandparents. And it was, I'll just say this. Sir Matt, give it like 2 episodes, and I want to know what you think. So I will send you my Hulu login.
Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, look at this. Supporting actress in a drama series. These are the candidates. Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones. Julia Garner from Ozark. Lyanna Headey from Game of Thrones. Fiona Shaw from Killing Eve. Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. Macy Williams, Game of Thrones. Okay. I mean,
wow.
How many is 6? So you get 6 people, and we've got 4. So I'd say our chances are pretty good.
Yeah. That's... Of those 4, like, who wins from Game of Thrones?
Well, I haven't seen Ozark, nor have I seen Killing Eve, so it would be unfair at this time to say well they're better than those shows because I haven't seen them. But assuming that someone from Game of Thrones is going to win, given the 4. This season, I think it'd be hard to put it on Cersei because she didn't really have a lot of screen time. I did see a lot of memes that said I think she was getting paid, like $1 million an episode, and she was just standing looking out a window drinking wine for most of the season, and everyone, people were saying like, "This is our dream," get paid, like, just
go her,
drink wine, look out a window, and get paid $1 million, like best job ever,
right?
So of those four, I'd probably, I don't know. I'd probably Macy Williams.
Yeah.
This season, just because I think of her character, we saw a lot more Arya.
You're darn right. We did.
Well, okay, that's not what I meant. But I mean, Sansa's role wasn't really. It was great this season, and obviously Sophie Turner's amazing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really anything that I thought was like spectacular. This season, I think for Arya and Macy Williams, there was a lot of dynamic to her character. We saw she of those characters. I think she had a lot more of she had a lot of different emotions she had to play. Her character had a much bigger arc. So
yeah, well, I say the same thing about Gwendolyn Christie. They both were kind of in that spot, weren't they? They were learning, having these like intimate interactions, and they were developing these relationships or what have you. They're in really tense moments. I mean, here's the thing: Arya Stark kills the Night King, so I mean, major support role there, friends. Without her, I don't think the show moves on. So I think we stop right there at the Long Night. But anyways, just me.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm looking at some of these other ones to see. There's a ton of random awards, like variety sketch series, variety specials, information series. No one cares about any of this crap. Okay. I mean, I'm sure somebody does, but not us. Yeah. Okay, I know that they had writing for a drama series, and so they were nominated for the Iron Throne, which is the final episode. Oh, and wow. people were joking about it on Twitter, saying, "Really? That's what got nominated for?
Wow, yeah,
for best writing."
Well, is that because it's the almost said the Duffer Brothers?
Well, okay, Stranger Things definitely deserves.
Definitely, yeah. Is that because it's D&D? Is that the thing? Is it because didn't they write and direct that one? Isn't that the?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and then the episode that got nominated for production design was The Bells.
Really?
The episode where, yeah. I would think that The Long Night. I know a lot of people didn't like it because it was really dark. To me, I mean, if you look at both of those in comparison, because they're both, huge, just spectacular episodes. I still would say that I think The Long Night is a little more impressive in terms of like effects and what they had to do than The Bells, just because The Bells is mostly CGI and visual effects of Daenerys burning King's Landing down.
Yeah, absolutely. Huh. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't really like The Bells. Just didn't stand out to me. Well, I guess I take that right. She's the dragon. She's torching everything.
Yeah, she's just torching everything.
Yeah, there's some irony in that. The whole setup and the production, and then it's all just blown away. Wow. Well, that's cool. That's really neat. I'm not huge into who wins what awards. I'm always happy to read the news article the next day and like, oh, cool, we won or this or that. I don't really follow all of the drama, but it is neat that we have that many people nominated, for supporting and lead and just the different, writers and production crew and stuff. I don't know. That's cool. That's really neat. Well, that's one of the things too that like I think it was Maisie or Sophie Turner had said just that like it really takes. It's not just these actors, and we've gotten ravens about that. There are so many people involved that we never mention, and this is their chance to kind of go out there and get their name mentioned and get some of that recognition they deserve because without the set, without all of those props, without attention to costume and stuff like that, then it just doesn't feel like it should. It's not as good. So,
Yeah, I mean the guy who almost never gets any credit is how do you always forget how to pronounce his name, but it's like Raymond Jawadi, the guy who is the who does all of the music for Game of Thrones. I mean, all of the music is amazing. The Night King theme I listen to pretty regularly.
Yeah,
I think it's just perfect. Yeah. So.
Well, I'll tell you who doesn't get enough credit is George R.R. Martin. Okay.
There we go.
So I don't know. Poor guy. He's been writing this for so long. I mean, man.
Well, he's an executive producer, so.
Okay, maybe he gets a little credit. All right.
He gets a little credit. So.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, good luck at the Emmys.
Yeah. I mean, Sir Matt and I are rooting for you. I'll actually probably watch it this year. Just to kind of see how we do.
It's the final one.
Someone send me a message when it's happening and remind Sir Ezra that it's on and I need to be watching. Okay. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
We did have a couple special requests. Do we want to go over the special requests today in today's episode?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just feel like I don't know that I have a whole lot on today's chapter, so I thought this might be a good time. We had like well, for one, let me give a shout out here to Sir James of House Nutter, who made one of these requests, but then also asked if he could kind of help out with some website design stuff. So that's on the down low. Can't really tell you much about that yet, but he is a professional and does this for a living and things. So if people are interested in his services, we can get you the information and get you the hook up there. But yeah, so we got some exciting stuff coming in that realm. We've talked about the Discord. We've talked about some of those updates and some of the stuff on Patreon that's going on. Lots of cool stuff. And in the midst of all of that, someone asked us, like, now that the show's over and we've got a lot more people listening who are show watchers who are now trying to pick up on the books, and this is a great time because we're in Game of Thrones right at the end. We even had I had 3 people reach out and say, can we just pick up with the Clash of Kings and just go? I'm like, honestly, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you could.
There's really, I mean, you can go back and listen to all the other episodes too if you want to, and just get like a condensed version of what happens, and then just roll with the new book that we're about to go into here in a couple weeks. But people wanted to know how the show was like founded. How did we start the show? And I think people go to the feed and they look back and they wonder how did this happen? How did Sir Matt and Sir Ezra meet out on the battlefield, or where did we meet in Westeros?
Wow, I mean, like originally, where did we meet? Like way back in the day. I will say we do have in our Facebook group a Q&A section posted because we've had a lot of requests to do that, and we'll be doing kind of a bonus Q&A, just whatever you want to ask us question. There's a lot about there about how long, just some of the behind the scenes stuff that we do, and other stuff just about the show and just some of our favorite theories and stuff like that. So if you want to have your questions submitted for that, just go hit that up in the Facebook group. But this is a similar type question here. So where did we meet? Where did we meet originally? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I think it was kind of a fictional sort of like, were we in the Riverlands, or where did Sir Ezra?
Oh, I got you. I got you.
But then also, how did BTK come to be? Really, is the main question.
Well, originally, I would say that Sir Ezra and I probably met in Dorne, because I'm pretty sure it was Spanish class in in ninth grade. So,
oh my gosh,
it's probably the Dornish marches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow.
that's where I'd go with that. Yeah.
Was that Mrs. Klein? Wasn't that Mrs. Klein? It wasn't Mrs. Jones.
It wasn't Mrs. Jones. It was. I think it was Miss. Yeah. It was. She was only there 1 year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was Mrs. Klein. Yeah. Easiest class I ever took in my life. Can't speak a word of Spanish.
Well, that's because we had that one guy sat in the middle of us, and we just cheated off. I mean,
what? Whoa, dude, we would never do that. Oh my gosh! I mean, he just, we worked in groups a lot. We were, it was.
Yeah, there was a lot of group efforts.
There was a group where we were helping him, with other things outside of the classroom. So,
yeah. So, Yeah. So how did Bend the Knee start? Well, Sir Ezra and I have worked on a lot of other projects before, and we wanted to do something where we could talk about like everything. Like we're like, we'll talk about Game of Thrones, we'll talk about Stranger Things, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about that, and then nobody ever talked to us. Like we were doing good, like in terms of like how many people were listening.
Sure,
but we
yeah.
had zero fan interaction. Like I mean, absolutely zero fan interaction, and we're like, I guess we can just do an episode on whatever we want, and people will listen, because our numbers just kept growing, and we're like,
Yeah.
this isn't really fun, because
Yeah, we want to talk to people. Yeah.
we wanted to talk to people, and we had no idea what to do. We're like, I don't know, I guess we could do this. I don't know, I guess. So we did like food reviews, and we was like, okay. And so, but ultimately, I would say the thing we talked about the most was Game of Thrones. And we said, all right, well, let's just do it. Let's just do the full bore Game of Thrones podcast. And so that's what we did. We just said, all right, we're going to do the reread. We're going to talk the show. We're going to do the whole thing. So,
yeah, I mean, we were kind of almost like back in the day, like early days of us doing like YouTube and stuff. That's what we did. We reacted to the show. We made some comments. We set up late at night running through R plus L equals J. We weren't quite sure about it, but then we were sure. And, we were running down theories and stuff. So we've been doing that for a long, long time.
Right.
And it just sort of, but we tried other things, I guess. I don't know. And then kind of said, you know what? Bend the knee.
Yeah. And I mean, talking all the other stuff was a lot of fun. I mean, you and I are missing, talking in a podcast format about Stranger Things right now.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Dragon Ball. We were talking movies. We were talking, I mean, we did like Wonder Woman reviews. When that movie came out, Marvel, sports, the whole deal. But I mean, Game of Thrones, I would say, was still like 90% of what we were talking about. And then, I mean, Star Wars is something we do as well, which is why we've now just like, hey, we just fully started a Star Wars podcast.
Hyperspace Hangout.
There's a lot more backstory on that we will not get into here, but
that's juicy material.
that's some juicy material.
We had a trial by combat, friends.
Yeah,
we won.
A Jedi trial by combat.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. Really was. I mean, it was a lot more epic than that, because I remember is when you and I were living together, and I kind of walked in. I was like, dude, because we completely stopped with Second Breakfast.
Yeah.
Because we stopped it around January, because we're just like, we don't know what you guys want us to talk about. So we had like a Facebook page and the whole deal, and we was like, if you guys can let us know what kind of direction you want the show to go. And no one said anything, even though clearly like hundreds to like a couple thousand people were listening.
Oh, I know.
We had zero fan interaction, so we're just like, all right, well, let's just do like the full book club format in Game of Thrones. And people were fine with it, and it changed immediately. And then, I mean, that's really the best part of this show is the community.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if we were just talking and people were listening and we had zero interaction, we'd probably quit it too. I mean, it literally is what makes it worth it is the fan interaction, the Facebook group, the messages, the ravens, the commenting to each other on Twitter, because that's what makes it fun. That's what makes all of this fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just recently meeting Sir Josh, and we've got Liam out there. Maglum is working on maybe a doc for us, Lord Adam Parker, who we met early on and have been talking with ever since.
Absolutely.
And, I feel like
Lady Jade. I mean, yeah, everybody. The Discord hangouts. I mean, that's what makes it fun.
Right. Yeah, we're actually getting to know people, and we're friends with a lot of these people. I mean, Sir Dustin and Lady. Yeah, you said Lady Amanda, Lord Robert. I mean, the list goes on. It's just fantastic to be interacting with people and hearing their thoughts and stuff. It's taken off too, because I mean, we've got our captain of the guards now doing polls and stuff we talked about, and it's just becoming, I don't know. The bigger the better, and it's also just really cool that new people come in. They kind of learn from everyone else who's been here, and we all kind of fall in line. And some people bring stuff that like James, Sir James is bringing in the idea of the website and wanting to make that better. Somebody wanting to make Discord a little better.
Yeah, it's definitely
evolving.
it's definitely I would say it's a community first podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of these days I want to go. We just missed. Gosh, I mean, whether we kickstarted or I want to do something where we got to get Sir Matt and I to a convention of some kind and have a big meetup. You know, just I don't know, King's Moot, whatever, something. So
yeah, I'd be down.
Be cool. It'd just be cool because there's so many. I mean, it's the interaction there is great, but it just goes that much further when we get to some of these cons. And that's sort of the goal of our Patreon, is that it pushes us to get more equipment, which we're getting close to. We've got one or two more things we might need, and then that are going to make the show that much better. And we don't get anything that we would not need or use in the show. Straight up. I mean, everything that I wish I could take a picture of what I have right here. We're even about to go to video. We're about to start taking video of the show and doing like little teaser bits or little segments, little trailers, cutting it up and putting it on YouTube. So there's just a lot going on, and it's
I really want to at some point go through the cookbook and do like all of the recipes and stuff. We're getting close for a lot of that stuff. We have, when A Clash of Kings hits, it's what I'm referring to as season 2 of Bend the Knee. So just get ready, because it's going to be bigger and better.
Yep. So the prep work is being done now, and that's why these conversations on the side are happening. And if you're someone who has a talent or a skill, or you think you could help with an intro or an outro, or you think you could help with whatever it may be, reach out to us. If we don't need it, or we can use it in some way, or we have it just for special episodes or whatever, like if you have a way in which you think you can contribute, that's another way to man the wall. You don't always have to just go to Patreon or go wherever. We could use services and skills and all that good stuff, because it is a bigger community. You know, it really hit me when when we were going in, when Sir Ant went into the Discord and said, I want this to be like a one-stop spot for everyone in, you know, Game of Thrones Westeros, and it'll grow. It'll just kind of continue to grow, and people get used to using it in one capacity, and then also coming to the Facebook page. And I'm like, yeah, I hope it does just keep kind of growing and stuff. Because
he completely transformed our Discord server.
Yeah,
I mean, night and day transformed it.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want folks to remember is that, like, you have other communities. Most of the ones that are fairly large they're all just book. They're literally book only, and I think
or their show only,
their show only.
Because I would say, so there's the Form of Ice and Fire, which is a Song of Ice and Fire wiki, and that form, I gotta say, when you and I talked with Order the Green Hand, it is a little harsh. Like, I've seen some of the comments. Like, the Reddit community is pretty, and that's one thing I really like about Reddit, is that it's not like YouTube where you start, you know, it's like you'll click on a video on YouTube and it'll, or Twitter's the same thing, and let's say it's a theory on like R+L=J, and it'll be like, like the first comment will be, hey, I think this is a really good idea because of this and this, and then somebody will criticize one of the thing, like, you know, one word that guy said, and then the next thing is just like jerk, douche, asshole, you know what I mean? And then it's it just turns into a big criticize fest. Reddit isn't as bad, because Reddit is very heavily moderated, especially both the Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
Even what's the other one? The Free Folk one is, they say there are no rules, but there still kind of are.
Yeah. Right.
And so anyway, so then you have those Reddit communities where those are really good. I really like those. But the Wiki of Ice and Fire, I have definitely, not like harsh, like, hey, you suck, but it seems like there's some bias there. So I'm not just from what I've seen. I haven't dug into it enough to really say that, but just at a glance, that's kind of what I've seen.
Well, I'll tell you right now, like, the crazy part, and this is why we've always tried to create a community where you can send us any raven. And we used to call them, like, I mean, just any raven. Didn't matter how crazy it was. Didn't really matter. If there's a way for us to make it work, we will. And if it doesn't work and there's glaring evidence against it, we're still going to take the spirit of the raven and try to make it work, and try to figure out a way in which to honor, or get some significance from the Raven. Whereas like that community, the Form of Ice and Fire, golly, you got to have a lot of cojones to go in there and post, and that's what we don't want. We don't want people to feel like they can't post some crazy theory on Facebook and stuff. We've got good captains in there who are going to make sure that everyone is treating everybody fairly and stuff.
To be fair, we've never had to. I mean, I think we've only ever removed two. I think about two posts, and I know I think I've only ever had to kick out one. No, that's not true. I've kicked out two people from the group. One was just like some bot, that got in, and it was posting like weird like medical surgery like photos and stuff. And I was like, okay, I agree with that. And then another was a guy who was just blatantly being disrespectful, and that's why I made that huge post in the Facebook group about like at the end of the day, if I will just boot somebody out. I will, so.
Yeah.
Don't have to. But I mean,
you're allowed to disagree with people.
Absolutely. I mean, we have almost 1,000 people in there, and the fact that I've only ever had to do that twice, I think is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's epic. So we're really proud of the group that we've created, and really not the group that we've created, that you've created, because people some of the first members who came in were just positive people, and we're just good-hearted people who just want to dish. They just want to talk. They want to talk about this kind of stuff, and they're into it, and it's nerdy, high fantasy kind of stuff. So it's cool that we're, I think we're all of this of this like mind and this spirit. So it's just fun.
I mean, some
people
people
have
are
fun while you're here.
Yeah, some people are more casual than others. Some people say, hey, I read the books, I watched the show, and some people are like, oh, I have. The Game of Thrones. I'll have like one or two, the Game of Thrones Funko Pops or something like that. Or some people are like, I buy Game of Thrones socks. I buy Game of Thrones shirts. I have Game of Thrones tattoos. I mean, some people are like, I cosplay, whatever. It's open to everybody.
Right. Exactly. One more thing I wanted to mention too, we had it was a Raven. It's been a while back, but someone, and we go back to this because Sir Matt and I often think about the structure of the show, Raven's Nest. We think about when we used to do Follow Up Friday, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not worried about, especially with the prequel show coming out, I'm not worried about the pace of the reread because I know that we will be here for the next, hopefully physically we'll still be on this earth, but R'hllor willing, if you will. But I feel like we're going to keep doing the reread, and then we'll have the show to kind of talk about, and that'll always be the cornerstone of this is going to be the reread. And then we kind of, as the show comes out, we do big events like that, or we do a rewatch or something.
Well, I mean, look, if Disney has shown us anything, it's that you buy a franchise and then you milk it for every penny it's ever possibly worth.
Right.
And I mean, don't kid yourselves. Just because Game of Thrones was way too successful for HBO to not be sitting there saying, how do we, that was fun. Okay, what's next? Nah, that's not how it's going to work. That's not how. I mean, if you are a successful franchise in any way, shape, or form, you will be milked to the last penny. I mean, I'm just thinking like Nickelodeon bought Ninja Turtles, and I'm pretty sure they've had there's been like since the original series, there's like been like 3 other versions. I mean, the Fantastic Four has been rebooted like 8 times. I mean, we're getting a Lord of the Rings TV series. It's just it's how it works. Harry Potter was supposed to be over after the 7 books and 8 movies, but that's gonna continue. I would not be surprised if at some point in the future we didn't have a Harry Potter TV show. I think that I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. But
Give it time.
I think in the next 10 years there will definitely be, whether it's like a Netflix style show or something like that. Any franchise that has been successful whatsoever will be milked to the last penny. So Game of Thrones is right there.
It's right there.
Say. Yeah.
And we will be there with it and just enjoying ourselves and having a good time. So the great thing about a book is you can go back and reread it. I mean, I'm doing that right now with a lot of the Star Wars Legends books that I read over on Hyperspace Hangout. And I enjoy that, and then I'm rereading this series, and I'm rereading Lord of the Rings, and it's just great. You can always go back and revisit those and get kind of lost in those other worlds, and I think that's what's fun about it. So
yeah,
if you're into that, then stick around.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll come back. Yeah, with that Q&A should be a lot of fun. I'm in there kind of asking Sir Matt several questions, and I hope he doesn't start asking me questions. They can be about the books. It can be about BTK. It can be about whatever you want. Anything.
Yeah.
It can be embarrassing. We don't care. If it's too embarrassing, we'll skirt around it. Best we
I don't
can.
know. We'll probably just go full bore.
Yeah. If you don't answer truthfully, there's going to be some shame in the streets, and I will record it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, but yeah. So look forward to that. I'll go ahead and pin that or make that an announcement in the Facebook group so everybody can kind of check that out for the Q&A session. But all right, everything else, I think are we ready to kind of jump into
let's dive
study?
into kind of our Maester study here. Yeah. So this week, do you care if let me do the? Well, no, I guess I'll just kind of do the summary of this week's chapter because it's going to tie in, and then we'll get into the bigger one later. So this week we will be talking Tyrion VIII. Tyrion and his clansmen are assigned to the vanguard under the command of Sir Gregor Clegane. Returning to his tent, Tyrion is greeted by a whore named Shae, whom Bronn has found for him. Before dawn, Tyrion is roused by the call to arms. In the ensuing battle on the Green Fork, Tyrion and his clansmen do well, and the enemy is routed. Afterward, Lord Tywin Lannister learns that Robb Stark has tricked him. So this week, the chapter itself is pretty straightforward. You can, if you've seen the show, it goes almost the same way, but there's a character that is introduced in this chapter who, for a lot of intents and purposes, I don't think there's really a lot of theories out there. I think there were, but then we kind of know what happens to her with Shae. This being about Shae, but. You and I, Sir Ezra, both think there may be a little bit more to her beginnings.
Yes. Yeah, we do. I do. And so let me just, in pulling up the wiki, pulling up some descriptions and some other notes that I have here on Shae, we know that she is, in this chapter, Tyrion kind of talks about, he knew that there were camp followers, and he wanted Bronn to go find him, a woman that he could be with the night before battle. So he does, and he finds a woman named Shae. She calls herself Shae. And we don't know much about her. One thing that I thought was interesting in the reread, we were used to seeing Sybil, who portrays her on the Game of Thrones show, and she's much older. She's in the book, she's 18 years old. I'm close to 18 years old. And so she's born in around 280 AC or maybe 281 AC, and she's more like 5 foot, so she's a little bit shorter, about 5 foot, I think, and around 18 years old. She's slim, very pretty. She has large, dark eyes, black hair. This kind of shy, innocent, but mischievous smile, as Tyrion describes her here off the gate. But it's just interesting, having read the series and watched the Game of Thrones show. Who is Shae? I mean, is she really just somewhat a camp follower, or did she just luck out in that Bronn picked her and she ends up with Tyrion? Is there more to it? And if you go to the a Wiki of Ice and Fire and you look at some of the fan art that's been done of her, she looks very Dornish and has those kind of descriptions, and she's also short and stuff. So just in the fact that she seems kind of Dornish. Now, I think she says later on, I got to pull this up so we can find this. Like, I think she does talk about her family a little bit and maybe where she was across the Narrow Sea, and it almost all seems like a lie. It just seems like she's like nothing that she really tells us is maybe true.
Right.
And so that's something that George does a lot to us. He makes us question our characters and whether they're telling us the truth, or that's why we're in this whole point of view, and like a point of view from Bran, who is a child, versus an adult. Lord Eddard Stark, they're different. One has more knowledge and more experience in the world, and this is this shy yet coy kind of 18-year-old girl who left her father. I think it says because, let's see, her history. She ran, according to the wiki, she ran away from her father when her father attempted to turn her into his kitchen wench and his whore. But I think later on she speaks kind of highly of her parents. I could be wrong about that, but I thought somewhere she said that. So it's almost like you get sometimes some contradicting information. And it made me think of Doran Martell when he says he's talking about Sorella Sand, and it's the fourth eldest sand snake, the bastard daughter of Oberyn Martell, and they're looking for her. Arya Hota is talking to Doran Martell, and he says, this is when they locked all the sand snakes up. And let's see, they don't really know much about Sorella Sand or where she's at, and they're looking for her. She's a grown woman. She's almost 20. Could she cause some mischief, kind of thing? And Doran says, unless she returns to Dorne, there's naught I can do about Sorella, save pray that she shows more sense than her sisters. Leave her to her ... game. And now a lot of people believe that, I'm going to say it wrong, but Alaris, I think it's how you say it, Alaris, known as the Sphinx, is actually Sorella Sand, and that's the game that she's up to. And so, okay, that could be. But I just wondered, when I think about Shae, and I just kind of, again, Sorella Sand is born in 280 AC, and it even says in the wiki, or 281 AC. We're not quite sure. She's around about 18 years old, same age as Shae, and she has that light brown skin. She has this insatiable curiosity, but it's also mentioned that she loves Old Town. So that's the connection to say that, well, she's probably over in Old Town pretending to be Alaris Sand, or just Alaris. So I don't know, my friend. I had kind of wondered if there were more theories out there on Shae and who she is, and some of her origins, and I don't think there is, right?
Right. Right. Well, one of the things to think about with her is, her downfall is, if you just watch the show, it's Tyrion finds this woman, and is the point of her art. Tyrion finds this woman, and they kind of have a relationship, and then she ends up kind of betraying him. But there is the whole Tysha part of this, where we know that Tywin hired Tysha, who was Tyrion's first wife, right?
Yeah.
And so there's all that stuff, and then in the show, that's actually when that story is told. In the books, it's when he's with Bronn before the clansmen arrive. So is the point of Shae to create a character that just exists only to give Tyrion's arc, to kind of push Tyrion's arc forward? You could almost make the same argument for Daario Naharis, where the whole purpose of him, at least in the show, the books could end up being different, but in the show, Dany has to leave him, and it's almost like she has to leave this life behind so that she can go get what she wants, which is the Iron Throne. It's something that she has to give up in order to continue forward on her journey. And it could be a similar thing with Tyrion, is that she exists really just to not to be anything special of a character, but just as someone to help drive Tyrion's plot and his character development. But I think there's a little bit more there, just because she lies in the courthouse, and then she lies with Tywin Lannister. And that's when Tyrion finds her. So it almost alludes to, did Tywin hire her so that Tyrion would whore around so he could punish Tyrion? Did he? Is there something else? You talked about how and I think so as well, she does almost look Dornish. Is it possibly a Martell conspiracy to help hurt the Lannisters, to divide them because they hate the Lannisters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it. Yeah, they hate the Lannisters, and is she some sort of device that was used there? That totally could work. The other thing, which you said there, Tywin. I mean, really, if he knows that Tyrion's weakness, is a woman and is being attached to someone, especially someone like Shae, I could see him intercepting Bronn, or knowing the patterns of his son and saying, I know he's going to be looking for a camp follower. Let me set something up, and let me put someone in there who I know, and I can always kind of call him out on, or whatever, because I think Tyrion's pretty careful, especially we'll find out in a Clash of Kings, about keeping her around, and still somehow it's known that he has her, and that he and it's something that Tywin tells him to get rid of, but knows that he can't. So you could make that argument. The other thing I wanted to mention about Shae, people will say, well, guys, she's dead. It's over, right? I mean, Shae, we know what happens to her.
Is she?
Yeah, right. Well, the other thing I think about when I think of Tyrion's arc and where he is, over in Essos, is that perhaps, what if he came across her parents? What if he came across someone else who cared about her? Maybe she was of like higher or noble birth, and again, the Lannisters screwed this up, and maybe they lost their little girl, and she was just out playing her game or having fun or whatever, and they learn of her death or something, and by the hand of Tyrion / Tywin, and he's in trouble for that, or he has to face them down in some odd way. That would be another way to kind of continue this story, and the hurt and the pain that he feels towards her, and the betrayal that he feels and stuff. So I don't know. I kind of wondered if other people had thoughts and theories on Shae. I just hadn't been able to find a whole lot, and maybe people have given her more thought and really, have done an in-depth study.
A character who I do think will show up in the books is Tysha. I do think Tyrion's wife will show up, because we know that she's probably over in Essos somewhere. That's kind of the "where do whores go" line that he talks about later. And that's one of the reasons he kills. That's actually one of the reasons Tyrion kills Tywin, is because he refers to her as a whore. Tysha, not Shae. They change it in the show. So Shae's arc could help add that plot piece later down the line if Tyrion does run into Tysha while he is over in Essos in the books.
Yeah. Yep, that would be interesting, because there's actually a lot mentioned. He thinks about her all the time. That's one of those things, how George, we have Eddard thinking about the Tower of Joy, or we have people thinking about the tourney at Harrenhal. It's sort of a, I don't know, it's an element that's in the story. Certain characters have these events that predate the start of A Song of Ice and Fire, and they think about them. They come in dreams. Tysha shows up in his dreams and in his thoughts all the time. A lot in A Storm of Swords, and even in A Dance of Dragons, where he's trying to figure out where the whores go. He's asking that question and trying still to find her. I think maybe you're right.
Yeah, and when Shae is in Tywin's chamber before he kills both of them, it almost alludes to the idea of, hold on a second, why is she in there? Did Tywin just do it to spite Tyrion? Did they have some arrangement from the get-go? Or was she just,
Right.
I mean,
right.
What's her plan? What's Shae's plan after Tyrion's presumed, you presume he's about to be put to death, right?
Sure.
So I mean, what is her plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, does she think she can just stay with Tywin? I mean, and for how long? I mean, I don't know. It just does not. There's got to be more. I feel like there's got to be more, but maybe there won't be. Maybe that's sometimes what he does. It's real mundane. It's more straightforward than we think. It's just she's someone who shows up and ends up mingling with these higher lords and stuff, and is maybe working her way up. And it's a tragic story. She just doesn't work out for her. So but.
Okay, well, I say we jump into the chapter here, Sir Ezra. Tyrion VIII. On a hill overlooking the King's Road, a long trestle table of rough-hewn pine had been erected beneath an elm tree and covered with a golden cloth. There, beside his pavilion, Lord Tywin took his evening meal with his chef's knights and lord's bannermen, his great crimson and gold standard waving overhead from a lofty pike. Tyrion arrived late, saddle-sore and sour, all too vividly aware of how amusing he must look as he waddled up the slope to his father. The day's march had been long and tiring. He thought he might get quite drunk tonight. It was twilight, and in the air was alive with drifting fireflies.
Yeah. So this is the part where he's coming in late, and you start to see this relationship between he and his father. He's just insulted by his father quite a bit, and japes are made. Things that I don't know, that part of me thinks sometimes Tywin would do this maybe to Jaime or Cersei, but would he do it in private, or would he do it in front of his other, chief knights and lords bannermen? I don't know. I don't know that he would mock Jaime in front of others, I guess.
I don't know.
See,
Jaime maybe not.
Yeah.
Cersei, I think he probably would, just because she's a woman, and I think he even still has that kind of mindset. Again, you're talking about a medieval time, so that was kind of the mindset then. But it seems like he is far more stern with Cersei than he is with Jaime. Jaime, he seems to be a little more forgiving, a little more open. Obviously way more than Tyrion, but we do also see him tell Joffrey off, so in front of anybody. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I kind of wonder just if this was, because sometimes we think, oh, he only treats Tyrion this way. Maybe he would have. I think he's a little more obviously harsher to Tyrion and stuff, and has way more complaints and stuff. But we see him when he kind of chastises Jaime. It seems to be more private, and you're right. I mean, even Cersei sometimes on the King's Council, the small council, wasn't afraid to kind of call them all out for being incompetent at times, in his opinion. So,
right.
But yeah, okay. So, anyways, it's he's showing up late, and really that's the big thing: is that will you arrive late? To the battlefield. He kind of goads him into almost being a part of. We'll find out here in a little bit where Tyrion's forces are going to be. But
perhaps I'd best charge you with burying our dead, Tyrion, Lord Tywin said. If you are as late to battle as you are to the table, the fighting will be all done by the time you arrive. So my question to you, Sir Ezra, isn't that ironic? The fighting will be all done by the time you arrive.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I mean, it's ironic, and we've had that a couple instances of people arriving too late to battle, right? I mean, yeah, we were talking about Tywin being one of the Walder Frey and Tywin. Remember that? We were talking about just Robert's Rebellion and the late Lord Frey. So
yeah, just coming in at the very end.
Yeah. So, gosh. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, so they basically just start. They're about to start making their plans for the battle. Does the thought of facing the Stark boy unman you, Tyrion? Your brother Jaime would be eager to come to grips with him. Tyrion, I'd sooner come to grips with that pig. Robb Stark is not half so tender, and he never smelled as good. Then he starts talking about his clansmen. I almost called them wildlings, which they basically are.
I think they do call them wildlings later on. Like somebody makes that's almost like a jape or an insult that they make.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin Lannister does here in a second. Yeah, he says, "My savages will put your steel to excellent use, my lord," Tyrion replied. When he had told Lefton he needed arms and armor to equip the 300 men Ulf had fetched down out of the foothills, you would not have thought he'd asked the man to turn his virgin daughters over to their pleasure. And then, he says, Lord Lefford says, "I saw that great hairy one today, the one who insisted he must have 2 battle axes." And then he says, Shagga likes to kill with either hand. And then they go on. I think at one point he says, what he really wants is 3 axes.
Yeah. Well, and one of the issues with these clansmen, right, is just that, again, where Tywin finds room to insult him when Tyrion talks about how they don't get along with one another. When he's walking back to the camp, you find out this clan doesn't sit with this clan, and they don't eat together, and all this kind of stuff. Is like Tywin says something to the effect of like the fault would be with the commander, right? That it would be with their liege, their the person in charge of them. That's Tyrion.
Yeah.
So he's kind of making a huge jab there.
Yeah. And then so they they want to put him on the vanguard. Tyrion thinks it's kind of either his lord father has a new respect for Tyrion, or he's decided to get rid of him himself, or for his and so I like here where he talks about Tyrion starts talking it's just comical where Tyrion's talking about how ferocious they are, because it just sounds like a drunken story. Somebody's rambling on about. He's like, "Last night a moon brother stabbed a stone crow over a sausage. So today we made camp. 3 stone crows seized the man and opened his throat for him. Perhaps they were hoping to get the sausage back. I couldn't say. Bronn managed to keep Shagga from chopping off the dead man's cock, which was fortunate, but even so, Ulf is demanding blood money, which Khan and Shagga refused to pay." And then there's that, when soldiers lack discipline line.
Yeah. Well, and that's I mean, it's always a battle of wits, a battle of words between Tyrion and Tywin, and he's always trying to. I think Tyrion's making everything a joke and very comical about everything, because just the way he's treated, the way you kind of own it. That becomes his armor. He just sort of laughs it off and gives as good as he gets, I guess. If not better, right? Most of the time.
I think Tyrion does that for a lot of reasons. Because one, it's when you're that being a dwarf obviously has all of its disadvantages in this time period and setting, and so it's not like Tyrion can physically intimidate people. He can only intimidate people with his words. So he intimidates people earlier, and he intimidates people at the wall by saying, "Well, my queen's the sister. Wait till she hears about this," when they're threatening Jon Snow.
Yeah, right.
And so with someone like his father, who he doesn't really have any actual power over, the only thing he can do is turn it into a joke to almost make it seem like Tywin is the fool. I mean, that's really the only thing he can do is make these japes and makes these jokes, but he has to do it in a way that's not just like, "Well, you suck," because that obviously isn't going to work. So he's going to have to make it seem like what Tywin thinks is something is stupid. I mean, that's about the only way he can do it.
Yeah, it's weird too. There's moments where you almost wonder if Tywin wants to be proud of Tyrion in some way, because he does put him in the vanguard. Is that just to kill him, or is that a chance to, he wants a tougher, rougher, a more serious Tyrion? I almost wonder if he would treat, I just don't know. I think because of we mentioned Tysha, I wonder if things would have been different. I mean, I know things were still rough for him growing up, but it's like after you see your father play that type of that type of trickery on you and stuff, and try to make you into a man or make you realize the harshness of the world, he's just different. He doesn't take life for everything. He doesn't take things as serious as Tywin. He's a very different. He's a foil. They're very different from one another, and I don't know, because I wonder, why does he put him in the vanguard? What's the whole point? What's the reason in that? Is it just because you have the Storm Crows, you have all the mountain men and mountain clans, and you just want to, that's easy. We can just we made all these promises to them, but let's put them in there. knowing that they're going to take the brunt of all of this. Because then later on, the insult is that, well, you know what? If you can't control them, then maybe the vanguard is not the right place of honor or the place of, for those men, and we should they should turn into the rear guard, and that becomes the big insult, right? That they'll discard the number one. They're showing up late, so might as well. He's showing up late to breakfast, so they might as well just guard the rear, or he can't rule his men, so he can't lead. And Tyrion says, I think he makes a joke about that you would need a bigger man, I guess, or that he would want him to be a bigger man like his brother Jaime to lead men. And he even says that's something he struggles with, is that Jaime, men do seem to want to please him and follow him into battle, and that's his strength, that's his skill, but that's not Tyrion's, and he's never going to be like that, really.
No.
So.
He said, "Do me no kindness, father," he said angrily. "If you have no other command to offer me, I'll lead your van." In terms of talking about the vanguard, he says, Tywin says, "I've said nothing about command. You will serve under Sir Gregor."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tyrion says, "I find I'm not hungry after all." Yeah. Pray excuse me, my lords.
Yeah, just insult after insult and stuff. It's like if you're going to put him there, even if it's sort of a token kind of command, you could have done that, but maybe it's just, I don't know, too much. But also, you're putting him next to the mountain. Like, that's just not going to be good in any way, shape, or form, I feel like.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, I mean, dusk had settled, turning all the banners black. The Lannister camp sprawled for miles between the river and the King's Road. In amongst the men and the horses and the trees, it was very easy to get lost, and Tyrion did. He passed a dozen great pavilions and 100 cook fires. Fireflies drifted among the tents like wandering stars. He caught the scent of garlic sausage, spiced and savory, so tempting it made his empty stomach growl. And so he bypassed, he regrets this whole chapter bypassing that pork, that savory pork that was there with the bannermen. So, and he sees some giggling women run by and all this kind of stuff, and no one looked at him, no one spoke to him. No one paid him any mind. He was surrounded by men sworn to House Lannister, a vast host 20,000 strong, and yet he was alone. I think that's pretty important, too, is that he can go. They don't seem to mind him. No one really does pay him any attention and stuff. And then you look at the influence that he has later on the kingdom. It's radical. Now, once they do notice him, once you hear his name and you understand who you're talking with, then oh crap! I mean, we've got to pay our respects, and it's almost like an afterthought that comes, and you're like, oh crap, here we go.
And then so then he comes across his clansmen. They tell him to come sit with us. He sees that they have a fire and they're eating, and then again right here he says, what are you guys eating? And they say trout. And he's like, trout? He thought about the suckling pig. He's like, damn my father.
Yeah. The food, right? The food that just keeps cropping up in these this story. It's great. Now this is where we get a character, and we were going to talk about him a little bit more in our Maester study, but I decided kind of we'll get more on him later for sure. But Podrick Payne shows up. His squire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get a little connection to Sir Ilyn Payne, them being distant cousins, and that Pod is kind of silent. And he always wonders again if Tywin gave him Podrick as sort of some jape or some punishment or what have you. But that's his squire.
Yeah. Okay, so then Tyrion. So this is when Bronn brings. He sees the woman. He says, I am Tyrion of House Lannister. Men call me the Imp. She says, my mother named me Shae. Men call me often.
Yeah.
Bronn laughed, and Tyrion had to smile. Into the tent, Shae, if you would be so kind. He lifted the flap and held it for her. Inside, he knelt to light a candle.
Yeah, yep. And so we get to, this is where we first meet Shae, and we kind of talk, he's talking more to Bronn just about what he was like when he sent him out to kind of find someone who his preferences were that she was reasonably young, fairly good looking and things like that. And I think he's kind of, hoping that here the camp followers, like, I don't know, I guess sometimes, and this is, he was wanting the best of the best. I don't know. He had like certain things he was looking for, and he sends Bronn out to find a girl that kind of meets all of that. I think he wanted a shorter girl. She's like 5 foot, right? I mean, he wanted someone. He's a dwarf, and so yeah. But Shae is, I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's a tease. I mean, she. Yeah, I don't. She almost just seems too good, right? That's the thing. It's like she seems.
Yeah, because she says, he asks her for. He says, "In good time, are you a maiden, Shae? If it please you, my lord, what would please me would be the truth of you, girl." She says, "But that will cost you double." So even then, she's already. She seems. I mean, hey, she's playing the game. I mean, everyone is playing the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Regardless, everyone is always trying to improve their situation. You see, Bronn does it throughout the entire thing. Hey, I'll ally myself with this guy, and then that'll get me this and this, and and these certain things. So same thing.
Right. Well, later on, Bronn cannot afford for Tyrion to perish. I mean, he's got to make sure that he survives this, because that's his ticket. That is who he can. The ladder that he'll use to kind of climb and ascend on upward. Yeah,
absolutely. So even right there, I mean, she's playing that game as well. So, they're kind of lying around, talking a little bit, and then they start having a conversation.
Yeah, what kind of conversation are you talking about?
Well, no, I mean they start talking about he says he could feel this. Okay, what's that, my lord? She murmured against him. Nothing, he told her. A song I learned as a boy. That's all. Go to sleep, sweetling. When her eyes were closed and breathing, he slid out from behind her gently as not to disturb her sleep. Then so he talks about also what he wants from her too. He talks about how I want you to be here every night when I get home and take care of all of my wishes and all of that kind of stuff. So it seems like does he do this with every girl he meets? It seems like Shae, he immediately already kind of senses is going to be somebody kind of special.
Yeah, well, one thing he wanted too, and what's interesting about this is the way she sticks around. The reason she sticks around is because of who she is, and because of how she treats Tyrion, and knowing what it is that he wants. And one of the things he says about Jick is that when he would send him to go get these girls, he didn't always inform them that he was a dwarf, or that this is what I need you for, or whatever. And so Bronn must have done his job, done a really good job, and this is what got what Tyrion needed, because he also, after riding on he's in war right now. And so riding on a horse, when he gets down and he's in his tent, he needs someone to massage his legs. He's always talking about his legs cramping and the muscle issues that he has and stuff, and all of that. So that was another role that she was going to play, was to sort of help him, ease some of his pains and stuff, and help him along the way. So it's more than just sleeping in his bed at night. It's pouring his wine and being there and being more than that. So,
yeah. And then he and Bronn have a conversation about how he got Shae, right? And he says I took her from a knight.
Mm-hmm.
The man was loath to give her up, but your name seems to change that and my dirk at his throat.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, again, I wonder. We were talking about the origin of that, and it's I want to know who that knight is. Is it someone who comes up later, and you wronged me that night? You took, they hold a grudge or whatever. They realize how good Shae was, or it's just I don't know. It's too good. Was that person in cahoots with Tywin? I'm always looking for a way to find some. Some theory or some rabbit hole we can dance down. But Because we don't really learn that character's name, do we?
No, not that I know. Not that I know of.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So some minor lord, it didn't really matter, right? But I mean, Tyrion's worried that this is somebody who's gonna like hunt him down or be mad. Or
right here he says he asked her he asked her about the man Bronn had taken her from. He's talking to Shae here, and she named the minor retainer of an insignificant lordling. You need not fear his like, my lord. The girl says, her fingers busy. Her fingers are just busy. He is a small man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
this is where she
calls Tyrion a giant.
Right. So that goes on for a little bit, and then the action bit of this chapter kind of starts, right, is when they go back to sleep, and unless you have anything else, I mean, they're awoken by these trumpet calls that seem to almost be like hurry, 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 as in wake up. It seems like some they're in their camp, and something has happened to cause them to sound the alarm, and it's actually Shae who wakes him up, and Tyrion's got to get ready to go.
Well, just one thing here really quick. So, her calling Tyrion a giant. So let me pull it up here. In A Clash of Kings, chapter 67, Tyrion 15, when Tyrion's thinking about Tysha, she says to Tyrion, I love you, Tyrion. I love your lips. I love your voice and the words you say to me and how you treat me gentle. I love your face. So, I mean, Tyrion, it seems like, I'm wondering, as we were talking before about Shae and possibly, was she just hired by Tywin from the get-go, as Tywin would kind of know Tyrion falls really easily for these women who just tell him how great he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that is something there too, that, she talks about how, you're my lion, you're my giant, all of this stuff that Shae says to him.
Yeah, she knows. Yeah, plays the role. Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah. So, all right. So let's move on here. So, they're getting Tyrion all ready to go. He has a custom made armor set that's back in Castle Rock, but we don't have that here. Remember, because he was captured at the end of the crossroads, taken to the Vale, joined up with the mountain clans, and now here we're back with his father, and war has broke out. So he's got all these different. He's got the best that he can from Lord Lefford, right? And they're helping him buckle up. Pod's there. Shae's helping with the buckles and the clasp. And he says, if I die, weep for me, Tyrion told the whore. How will you know? You'll be dead. He says, I'll know. I believe you would. So it's like, she doesn't need to actually say that. And it's almost like, I don't know. He wants it to be a love. He wants her to love him, to truly. He loves that. He loves the idea of that, and he wants to be in. He's seeking, I guess, that we had the whole bit where he was lonely, right? It seemed like no one was around him, and he has Shae kind of filling that void, but it's a facade. It's not real, and that's what he longs for. That's what Tysha was. And that's why he thinks so much about her. So
yeah. So he ends up getting kind of armored here, and it says, my lord looks a dwarf in mismatched armor. Tyrion answered sourly, but I thank you for your kindness, Podrick. Should the battle go against us, see the lady safely home. He saluted her with his axe, wheeled on his horse about, and trotted off. His stomach was a hard knot, so tight it pained him, because he didn't really eat anything. But yeah, so the war horn blast off in the distance. I love how they build, like they really build this battle up, and then it doesn't even end up happening for right. Tyrion at least. It's like right. The clansmen climbed onto their scrawny mountain horses, shouting curses and rude jokes. Several appeared to be drunk. The rising sun was burning off the drifting tendrils of the fog as Tyrion led them off. What grass the horses had left was heavy with dew, as if some passing god had scattered a bag of diamonds over the earth. The mountain men fell in behind him, each clan arrayed behind its own leaders.
Yeah, yeah. Again, totally separate. They're each, behind their own leaders. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So his uncle, Sir Kevin, I mean, so cool. We get Sir Kevin here, and I kind of forget about Kevin Lannister, but him being the number 2, he's there. He had raised the standards above the King's Road. Quivers hanging from their belts, the foot archers arrayed themselves into 3 long lines. They're worried that that the young wolf has actually snuck down on them, right? I mean, he marched through the night, and this is kind of a surprise attack. They were less than half a mile away, and they thought they were, when they camped here, that it would be a full day maybe, until they saw them. But they were like right on them. So this is this surprise attack that they're kind of gearing up for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because they say, the Stark boy stole a march on us. He crept down the King's Road in the night, and now his host is less than a mile north of here. The trumpets are sounding. Hurry, hurry, hurry. See that the clansmen are ready to ride. Tyrion, is saying there. And then they're out, and Tyrion, this is where Tyrion starts giving his speech to the clansmen. It's pretty great. He says, Gregor says, "Any man runs, I'll cut him down myself." He was roaring when he caught sight of Tyrion. "Imp, take the left, hold the river if you can." And then Tyrion gives his speech here. "That river is ours. Whatever happens, keep close to the water. Never lose sight of it. Let no enemy come between us and the enemy." And then Shago with axe in each hand starts chanting, "Half man, half man, half." It's like so great. It's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, actually.
So great. But it's just so. Hey, Tyrion's great at giving speeches.
Yeah, he got him fired up, right?
And then he hits his speech, which helps, wins the battle of the Blackwater a little bit. So anyway, so they start going. The war horn blows. The Lannister trumpets answered. The horns dire and wait. A hissing filled the air. A vast flight of arrows arched up from his right. The archers stood flanking the row. The Northerners broke into a run, shouting as they came. The trumpets blaring. Sir Gregor waves his huge sword and bellowed a command. 1,000 voices screamed back at him. Tyrion put his spurs to his horse and added one more voice, and the van surged forward. The river. He wrote, the clansman. He was leading when they broke into a canter until Shae gave a blood-curdling shriek and galloped past him, and Shago howled and followed. The clansmen charged them, leaving Tyrion in their dust. So it immediately does not go well for Tyrion, but
right, yep. But hey, I mean he'll have Bronn. So.
Yeah, I mean in the book though, Tyrion does get to see a little bit more of the battle than he does in the show. In the show, it's like he walks outside and gets blasted in the face with a hammer, and then he's knocked out and he wakes up and he's like, "What happened?" At least here he's actually kind of riding into battle at least.
Yeah, I mean here it is, right? So Sir Gregor kind of waves his huge hand and bellowed a command. 1,000 other voices screamed back at him. Yeah, I mean here. So as you said, they're rushing down the river. Remember, hew to the river. So they're galloping in. This crescent of enemy spearmen had formed ahead, a double hedgehog bristling with steel, waiting behind tall oaken shields marked with the sunburst of Karstark. So he is right in the thick of it. He's in the chart. He's in this battle. Let's see. The mountains. So the mountain is we're following him a little bit. Gregor Clegane was the first to reach them, leading a wedge of armored veterans. Half the horses shield at the last second, breaking their charge before the row of spears. The others died sharp steel points, ripping through their chest. Tyrion saw a dozen men go down. The mountain stallion reared, lashing out with iron-shod hooves as a barbed spearhead raked across his neck. Maddened, the beast lunged into the ranks, spears thrust at him from every side, but the shield wall broke beneath his weight. The northern men stumbled away from the animal's death throes. As his horse fell, snorting blood and biting with his last red breath, the mountain rose untouched, laying about him with his two-handed greatsword. So you get to follow kind of the mountain a little bit and just see what an epic, boss he is. And then we'll switch back to kind of the mountain men. And Tyrion kind of making the commands. He shouted, "Burned men, Moon brothers, after me!" But most of them were ahead of him. He glimpsed, yeah. So he is right in it, right? I mean, he's way more in it than he is in the show. I mean, he's out here actually kind of giving commands and getting in the experience.
Well, and he's seeing the battle too. And at one point he kind of starts getting chased. As you said, most of them are ahead of me. It says the hedgehog was crumbling, the Northerners reeling back under the impact of the mounted assault. Tyrion saw Shae catch a spearman full in the chest as the fool came at a run, saw his axe shear through mail and leather and muscle and lungs. The man was dead. Finally, the dead man slid off Shae. Shae smashed the two axes together and roared. But then the enemy was on him, and Tyrion's battle shrunk to the few feet of ground around his horse. A man at arms thrust at his chest, and an axe lashed out, knocking the spear aside. The man danced back and forth for another try, but Tyrion spurred his horse and rode right over him. Bronn is surrounded by three foes. It says a thrown spear came hurtling at Tyrion from the left and lodged in his shield with a woody chunk. He wheeled and raced after the thrower, but the man raised his own shield over his head. Tyrion circles around him, raining axe blows down on the wood. So Tyrion's fighting.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah,
he's actually fighting in this. Unlike on the show, a burned man rode past, slumped against his horse. A spear had entered his belly and come out through the back. He was past any help, but when Tyrion saw one of the Northernmen run up and make a grab for his reins, he charged. Tyrion buries an axe in some guy's head, says, "You die," he told him, and then he did. The Northerners are chanting for Eddard and Winterfell. At one point, he says he's fighting a knight here. The knight came thundering down on him, swinging the spiked ball of a morning star around his head. Their war horses slammed together before Tyrion could do so much as open his mouth to shout for Bronn. His right elbow exploded with pain as the spikes punched through the thin metal around the joint. His axe was gone as fast as that. He clawed for his sword, but the morning star was circling again, coming at his face. A sickening crunch, and he was falling. He did not recall hitting the ground, but when he looked up, there was only sky above him.
Yeah.
Tyrion the imp. Tyrion the knight walks over. Tyrion the imp. He boomed down. "You are mine. Do you yield, Lannister?" Yes, he thought, but the words were caught in his throat. He yells again. "Do you yield? Yield or die." Tyrion lurches to his feet, driving his head into the horse's belly. The animal gave a hideous scream and reared. Yeah, and so then, the guy again, "Yield." "Yes," a voice moaned, thick with pain. Tyrion scraped the mud off his helm so he could see. The horse was falling away from him onto its rider. Tyrion's yelling, "I yield, I yield." Dazed, the dwarf knelt and lifted he's got a blade. Pain hammered through his elbow when he moved his arm. The battle seemed to have moved beyond him, though. No one remained part of this. He sees just a large number of corpses. Yeah, and then this is when Sir Kevin Lannister brings up support in here. So,
yeah, So the table turns right there on that night. I mean, it's like he is able to kind of scare his horse into rearing and falling back and crushing his leg, and so now he's the one yielding, right? I mean, he's throwing his sword down at Tyrion's feet and stuff. It's like, Tyrion never had to actually yield, even though the thought comes to his mind. There's something that keeps, that at bay. He's not going to yield. This is battle, and it's wild. Although it makes you, in that moment right there, you do wonder, how are some of these other the attackers or whoever, when you're in battle and you realize that you're up against a lord or someone who would be a good prisoner? Like, I think it's if you can bring them back and say that you captured, whoever it may be, Sir Jaime Lannister or Tyrion or whatever, that's a big deal for you to bring back to your side. So,
it's a big bargaining chip. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like that. This individual knight gets a lot from that if you're able to take, and obviously you think you can take Tyrion. It's like, come on, I can. It's not like I'm fighting Sir Jaime Lannister and I have to be my wits about me or whatever. Even if he's injured or has a broken leg or whatever, you're more likely just to be cautious and get a couple more men to kind of take him in. But this guy's going to take Tyrion in on his own if he can, and it just doesn't work for him.
Right.
So
and so let me see here what I have highlighted next. So then this is when he starts talking to Bronn a little bit, because Bronn comes over. He says, small use you turned out to be. Tyrion tells Bronn. He says, it would seem you did well enough on your own. You've lost the spike off your helm though. I haven't lost it. I just know where it is. I know just where it is. He just asked him, have you seen my horse? He said by the time they found it, the trumpet was sounded again, and Lord Tywin's reverse came sweeping up along the river. Tywin watched his father fly past, the crimson and gold banner of House Lannister rippling over his head as he thundered across the field. 500 knights surrounded him, sunlight flashing off the points of their lances. The remnants of the Stark line shattered like glass beneath the hammer of their charge.
Yeah. Yep, so the reinforcements kind of show up there, and this is where you start to realize this happened fairly quick, and the clansmen have their losses. They discover, Timot's there looting bodies of the slain and stuff. They've got their losses, but of the 300 clansmen who had ridden to battle behind Tyrion Lannister, perhaps half had survived, so about maybe 150. So, Gregor and his men, and then, Tyrion here. This is over pretty quick. Which should be they chalk it up to the young wolf being cautious and not being experienced and just thinking, oh, he was just testing our forces, or maybe he's overly cautious and that's why we were able to win here. At one point Tywin had called him a green boy, right? But we find out that's not the case. So let's see what his father said to him here, though. So we'll first let's see. Lord Tywin was seated by the river, sipping wine from a jeweled cup. So when he finally comes and finds his father here, a fine victory, Sir Kevin said when he saw Tyrion. Your wild men fought well. His father's eyes were on him, pale green flecked with gold, so cool they gave Tyrion a chill. Did that surprise you, father? He asked. Did it upset your plans? We were supposed to be butchered. Were we not? So, again, always questioning whether or not he was to be killed in that attack. And he, Tywin, classic expressionless face. I put the least disciplined men on the left. Yes, I anticipated that they would break Robb Stark, that they would break. Robb Stark is a green boy, more like to be brave than wise. I'd hoped that if he saw our left collapse, he might plunge into the gap, eager for a rout. Once he was fully committed, Sir Kevin's pikes would wheel and take him in the flank. So really, he has a strategy all along that he's hoping that the battle commanders on the other side are going to exploit this weakness, and they'll try to outflank the vanguard here. But then set up in reserve was Kevin's men, and they were going to come in, and hoping that they would be too eager and take advantage of that weakness, and they were going to collapse in on him. So it's a great plan, and it works, but it works extremely well because they didn't commit all their forces. This is not a real. This is not the real battle, right?
Yeah, it's only a little bit. They when they say here, they said, I'll read some of this last little bit here. An urgent shout of Lord Tywin turned his father's head before he could reply. Tywin Lannister rose to his feet as Sir Adam Marbrand leapt down off his coursier. The horse was leathered and bleeding from the mouth. Sir Adam dropped to one knee. A rangy man with dark copper hair fell to his shoulders, armored. He says, my liege, we have taken some of their commanders, Lord Kerwin, Sir Wylis Manderley, Harrison Karstark, 4 Freys. Lord Hornwood is dead. I fear Roose Bolton has escaped us. First of all, those are some big names.
Big names. Yep, and they come back into play later.
Names. Yeah, like those. Yep. Those are. You got a Karstark, a Manderly, a Kerwin. I mean, right there. In the show when we see that scene where they crown Jon Snow King in the North. I mean, literally when Lyanna Mormont is saying, Lord Kerwin, your father was butchered alive, at the Red Wedding. Yep. I mean, Lord Manderly stands up and said, "I lost my son fighting for Robb Stark, the young wolf."
Yep.
But then he goes on to say that,
Yeah.
But now I fight for the White Wolf, the King in the North, Jon Snow. Anyway,
Right.
Sorry. So it's epic. Yeah.
Right.
He says, and the boy, Lord Tywin. Sir Adam hesitated. The Stark boy was not with them, my lord. They say he crossed at the Twins with the great part of his horse riding hard for River Run. A green boy, Tywin remembered, much more like to be brave than wise. He would have laughed if it hadn't hurt so much. But I really like in the show where I think it builds the suspense a little bit more, and where Tywin rides over to Tyrion. He asks about them, and he says, "Well, where's Robb Stark?" He says, with his army.
Yep. Yeah. And that's that. It does land a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. The way in which it's presented, because Tyrion is remembering there a green boy. This is what his father had said just moments ago. A green boy, more like to be brave than wise, and it's like, man, he actually, eat your words there. I mean, this is he's not with his main host. Has ridden hard to River Run, and they've actually caused Tywin to amass here and hold up their forces here. It's given them the time to go over and face down Jaime Lannister and relieve River Run, because no one was coming to their aid. That's what they were talking about with Walder Frey. Like, why are you not there? I mean, but that's where you're needed. So
right,
yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little chapter. You get the battle action sequences, and you get George's ability to kind of write some of that, and so it was good to hear some of that action-packed stuff there. And it's cool. The funny thing is that you can have comedy in that with Tyrion, and that he looks up, he's leading the charge, and the next thing you know, he's not leading it. Everyone has gone on past him. Mm-hmm. So, and he's behind. But yeah, it's cool. So we'll learn more about Tyrion will have more battles, and he'll have more he'll have battles of intellect and actually the Battle of the Blackwater Bay and stuff like that, and we'll have more interaction with Shae and stuff. Those men who were captured do become a big deal, and they become a big deal in the bargaining chips between some of those greater houses, and why they maybe will ally with the Lannisters later on. So it's important to keep those folks in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, friends. Well, I mean, we'll kind of we mentioned what's his name, Sir Adam Marbrand, a while back, and he's again that character. We're trying to point out some of these other characters who keep kind of popping up. Little minor character, but keeps popping up, and is definitely a Lannister loyalist, and so we see him here again, and we'll keep seeing him over and over and over again. So pay attention to those. We're trying to really point some of those out as we go through the reread here, because there are just so many more characters, and it's just overwhelming sometimes to keep track of all the houses and who's where your allegiances lie and all that kind of stuff, and it's a lot, but it's helpful in your speculation later on as to who may ally with who and what will happen. So, okay, no cool connections. We kind of covered that in the Maester study, so we'll get back to more of that. But we do have a Raven today from Sir Chris, and this is just this is great. This is just a nice way to kind of end today's episode. He says, "Hey guys, what's up? I wrote a couple Ravens in the past. My name is Chris from New Haven, so this is Sir Chris. I just wanted to say that we are doing a great job, that y'all are killing it in the podcast since I started listening about half a year ago, and I haven't gone a day without listening to an episode. The only reason why I haven't subscribed to Patreon is because he is a 18-year-old and broke. But remember, friends, hey, remember." sending in a raven, and I think he took us up on this, is the other way that you can man the wall. Sending in ravens is fantastic. It just gives us more
content,
fuel.
absolutely.
Yeah, and so this is exactly, he took us up on that, and so we really appreciate it. So yeah, he's like, you guys do a dope job of tying the books and the show together, making every listener feel like a part of the Bend the Knee family, discussing important topics and explaining things to everyone, explaining things so that everyone understands. You guys approach every topic with open minds and talk it out if you disagree. Your podcast lets me escape some of the shit going on around me and feel like I'm sitting with y'all recording, talking about my favorite show. And you know what? That's actually... Sir Chris, that's the thing, man. You know, like, that's when I go to these books and I'm sitting here talking with Sir Matt. Like, I mean, I had a real crappy end to my school year there, and I was just like, you know what, screw that. I want to go just kind of hang out and think about Sir Arthur Dane for a little while. You know what I mean? Sir Barristan Selmy and some of these guys. And it's my favorite part in the morning is listening to other podcasts and driving to work. I have a pretty big commute. And I've said it before, but just looking off in the mist over in the fields and just wondering what it'd be like to be on my horse, Thunder, riding through the forest and just making my way, across the countryside. So yeah, it's a great escape, and that's what we want it to be. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it says his friends don't really watch the show, but it's cool that he has our community kind of be, passionate and geek out with and share. So. Yeah, anyways. His only complaint is that we don't upload enough episodes fast enough. So, yeah.
Man. Well.
Exactly. Man, I mean, wow.
We do the best we can, man.
Yeah, we do the best we can, yeah. And actually, we will try to more and more. We've got kind of special bonus episodes that we've been thinking about. Just as we do more Patreon content, sometimes even there. If it doesn't really fit there, we think it's really good, and we want everyone to kind of listen. Then we toss that, on the main feed. So, but yeah, he's just looking forward to continuing the reread. Keep up what you guys are doing, and keep going down those rabbit holes. I can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every episode, for real. And Sir Chris, the thing is, and the reason I chose this Raven to talk about this week is because of the updates we were talking about at the top of the show, wanting to kind of make this, a great place where people can come and discuss and feel like you can talk about some crazy stuff, and people aren't going to, blow you out of the water for coming up with some crazy theory. It's sort of like, I don't know, like, what does that do? I often think that you have people who believe themselves to be gatekeepers of a community or a fandom and know more than other people. I actually do know quite a bit about Star Wars. And but I love when people come in and give me different theories and thoughts, and it changes my perspective. And I think you ought to approach things as more of an educator and as a teacher. And if you're one of our listeners and you do know quite about the books, I mean, even educating, Sir Matt and I sometimes, that's fair. Like, I mean, it's such a vast, big series that I feel like we want people to be comfortable with that. And it's all about your tone and your approach, and it's the way you tackle it. If you're here to have fun and you want to elevate the conversation and just look at it that way, then I think you're gonna have a good time. So that is the point here, and I'm glad that we have that going on, and our hope is to kind of continue that and just keep keeping on, man. So Sir Chris, thanks, man. We really appreciate the Raven.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other ways totally also as well to help support the show that are not Patreon. Like giving us a review on iTunes is enormous. It is an absolute enormous help.
It is. It's huge.
Reviews on Facebook or the Facebook, like the Facebook page, the Facebook group, or just like you can do like a recommendation. Those are huge helps.
Yeah, literally a like. I mean, if you can do nothing else, you can come like the Facebook page. It's huge. If you don't do Facebook, but you listen to podcasts, then the review is huge. I mean, it really is. We say that, but I don't think we ever just stop and really tell you guys how big it is, because it does grow. It grows. We get pushed out there further, and it, kind of takes the Bend the Knee cast to another level. So, yeah,
especially the iTunes. iTunes reviews is it's like make or break, really. Yeah, and we're really fortunate to have a really good rating. it went. Unfortunately, our rating got dinged quite a bit during the show, just because we had a lot of people who came on and just. I mean, if you go look at our iTunes reviews, I think it's kind of funny. It's like. Everybody's like, oh man, a lot of our book readers are like, I mean, we love, love the podcast and all that stuff. And that's great. And I don't mind a negative review if it's for a legit reason. But like during the show, we got so many like the trolls, man. The trolls came out hard,
dude.
And they're just like, you guys are just enthusiasts. So then we read a raven of someone who was criticizing the show, and somebody dinged us, and they're like, you guys are pandering to these like snowflake like listeners. And it's like, what, dude, what are you talking about, man?
What are you talking about? Dude, we have such a mixed, that show, that season was so crazy because we have some of our good friends who are in the group who really liked it, and then some who are in the group who are with us on Wednesdays who really don't like it, and they've sent us messages saying like, dude, what do we do? Like, just so you know, man, like I kind of took a back seat. I didn't really want to. We talked about Lord Hunter like the other week. He's one of our good friends, and like love talking to him, but it just kind of got burnt out or whatever. But there's a difference in those people who showed, like, one of the reviews is just like, Game of Thrones sucks, and it was just
exactly.
Like, oh,
hey, thanks, man.
Okay,
great, thanks, really,
I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate you taking the time. And
good.
Anyways, but we actually do get some good feedback. So
we do
like some of those reviews we've actually used, and we
a lot of.
We're not professional podcasters, by the way. That's the other thing. I think people sometimes like forget. Like we do. This is a craft. It is an art that we are perfecting and trying to get better at. We got some great feedback from Lord Adam Parker on our Hyperspace podcast, and it was good feedback. And he kind of encouraged, from a podcast listener's perspective, what he thought would be good for that show because he cares. And so I'm like, sweet, we're going to keep that in mind moving forward. Like, that's what a review is for. It's helpful for us and for listeners, So it's got to be, anyways, it's just a big deal. And so we want you guys to kind of think about that, because we know we've got a lot of listeners who just listen, and they don't engage on Facebook or Patreon or anywhere else. They literally just listen, and they enjoy it just fine there. Or maybe they don't. They just keep listening. Who knows? I don't know. But
absolutely. I mean, we had a lot of what I saw when the season came out and our kind of exploded a little bit was you guys talk over each other a lot. That was easily our biggest criticism. So I've made a concern, as best ever as I can, not to even when we're talking, and Sir Ezra and I both do this. We'll say things like
I just did it right there. I just
did
right
it there. Well, you'll be saying, and you'll be like, "Yep, And so I went back and I listened. I was like, you know what? I can totally see how that would be distracting to people. And so I was like, okay, I'll just not say anything. I'll keep that out. And then somebody gave us a review later, and they said, hey, like, clearly you guys have been reading some of these comments because I think it's really helped the show. And then that one we had last week where the guy said, I really like the show. You guys just are a little repetitive. You guys seem to talk only about these handful of characters this many times. So he said, okay, all right, we can absolutely talk about some other characters. So
yeah, and we've kind of turned the Maester study into some of that, either event specific things or like a character that comes up in the chapter that we want to kind of hone in on. And it's been good for me because looking at some of those minor characters that we hear about and seeing when I pull them up on the wiki, I'm like, how far does their story arc go and where do they go to? So it's been helpful all around. The other thing too, like some of the things that annoy people in podcasting, just it depends on your preference, because we listen to another podcast, I do anyways, called Swish and Flick, and you go listen to that, and I think a lot of our listeners would be like, it's unlistenable. Like, it's very hard to listen to because they're four friends sitting in a room, and it's just absolute chaos. But people love it because it's so funny, and they are engaging and stuff, and they have moments where it's completely just a free for all, but then they switch it into a more structured approach. So there's a lot of different styles out there, and it's kind of it's tough to find the middle ground and things like that. I mean, the other bit is that Sir Matt and I don't have, it's not scripted. So if you go listen to History of Westeros, who I really enjoy, by the way, just Aziz and I were talking on I got a chance to talk with him on Patreon, and then added me on Facebook, and we're going to try to meet up at a convention soon. Everything about that podcast is scripted, and the jokes and everything. I mean, he's great. He's a good writer. He has a good writer, and it's fantastic. But and I like it because I get some information from it. But I like to also go listen to talk shows and hear people, because you can kind of hear, I think, Sir Matt, sometimes you and I developing a theory or chasing something down a rabbit hole on the fly. And you know how hard that is? I mean, it's like we're rapidly searching stuff up because I'm like, oh crap, that's a great thought. And you're hearing the evolution of the conversation right away. So I also don't want to drop the whole back and forth conversation piece too. So
Right. Yeah. And I think it's influenced by what is it that you listen to. I don't listen to a lot of things that are really scripted. I think like you, I listen to a lot of talk shows. So that is how I think I ultimately end up sounding.
Yeah, right. Because that's what we're influenced. That's what we like, and sometimes it's we have a preference, and your listeners may not have that same preference. And so in that regard, sometimes people are just like, this show is not for me because I want something more scripted like Aziz, and I want to go listen to that's easier for me to hear and listen through. And honestly, that's fine if that's just your preference. Now, trying to change Sir Matt and I, tweaking things is one thing, but this is who we are. I mean, like, we're just having fun running the book club and trying to create like a really cool, positive community. And that's what we're going to keep doing. And honestly, what we're saying all of this, we had talked before we started the podcast and been talking for a couple weeks, gearing up into a Clash of Kings and really wanting to make this, like, take what we've learned in season 1 and try to go bigger and better and fine-tune some stuff. And things that we started in season 1 that people weren't as interested in, have dropped off. There are things that we've switched Patreon up a little bit. We've switched a couple, our format up, and we've added segments and things. So, we're making all those final adjustments right before we get into this next book. So if you guys hear that and you're wondering what the heck's going on, that's really what's happening with us. We're prepping to move into that realm, and also we're learning more from the collaborations that we do and talking to other podcasters and kind of feeling out the Game of Thrones community a little bit. We're kind of newcomers. We were talking again. I think it was Order of the Green Hand about. I've reached out to other podcasts, and it's been interesting. They are slow to kind of adopt you into the community. Like it's just taking a little bit. We've had 2 really great interactions with History of Westeros and Radio Westeros. Been very friendly, very very nice, and stuff. But yeah, it's tough because a lot of them are TV and film podcasts, and those are just kind of hard to. Some of those are big media groups who do kind of like binge mode, and they're just kind of moving between different fandoms. But anyways, I don't know. So we appreciate the feedback, and even if you want to send us a raven, BTK Cast, just send us a raven, and that's good too. If you don't want to put the review out there and you have something a little bit more like spelled out, like formatting changes or stuff, whatever it may be. I think Sam the Hammer back in the day gave us some good feedback and that we've used in the show. So don't be afraid to do that. We may not take everybody's advice, but we're not guys who are closed off to hearing what people have to think. Hearing your thoughts and suggestions. So just know that.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, Sir Ezra, I think it's time to sign off. We want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 63, Catelyn 10.
Yep. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember, winter is coming.